Michael, James, and Luke O'Connor weren't just brothers from Liverpool. They were the masterminds behind one of the city's most dangerous county lines drug networks. For years, their operation flooded streets with crack cocaine and heroin, leaving a trail of addiction and fear in its wake. But beneath their carefully guarded empire, cracks were forming, and a relentless police investigation was closing in, ready to shatter their world and bring justice to a city desperate for change. Liverpool's streets were familiar to many, a city shaped by its history of docks, football, and working-class resilience. But beneath the surface of everyday life, a darker world was quietly taking hold. Over the past year, an alarming rise in drug-related activity had unsettled the city. Crack cocaine and heroin, once less visible, were now flooding neighborhoods where families struggled to feel safe. What no one realized at first was how deeply this new wave of crime was connected to a secretive and powerful network that reached far beyond Liverpool's boundaries. In the heart of this rising storm were three brothers, who lived in a modest terrace house in one of the city's rougher areas. To neighbors, they were just another family trying to get by. But behind closed doors, their lives were entwined with something far more dangerous. The brothers were part of a growing county lines operation, a system where drugs were transported from big cities like Liverpool to smaller towns, using young people to run the drugs and money between locations. This network was notorious for exploiting vulnerable youths and using violence to maintain control. For months, the brothers moved carefully, avoiding attention while building their influence. Their operation was growing rapidly, supplying crack cocaine and heroin, not just across Liverpool but to neighboring towns as well. The streets whispered about their reach, but few dared to speak openly. The three brothers' ability to manage their business discreetly made them difficult targets for the police. They had created a shadow empire that was both feared and respected in equal measure. Meanwhile, the local police force was becoming increasingly alarmed. Drug users and families affected by addiction were calling for action, but cracking down on county lines was complicated. These networks were organized, adaptable, and ruthless. Authorities knew that taking down the brothers would require a careful and determined approach. The city braced itself, unaware that a major police operation was about to unfold, one that would challenge the very foundation of the brothers' criminal enterprise and change Liverpool's fight against drugs forever. The three brothers grew up in a part of Liverpool where opportunities were scarce and challenges were many. Their childhood was marked by hardship, with broken schools, struggling families, and limited prospects around every corner. From a young age, they learned to rely on each other and to navigate the rough streets that shaped their early years. Their parents worked hard, but couldn't always shield them from the pressures outside the home. As they grew older, the brothers faced a difficult choice: follow the path of the community around them, or find a way out by any means necessary. Small jobs and odd errands were their first steps into the world of making quick money. At first, these were innocent enough, delivering messages or carrying packages for neighbors. But soon, those errands began to change. The packages grew heavier and more dangerous. The brothers found themselves drawn into the local drug trade, starting as runners and lookouts before gradually taking on bigger roles. Their street smarts, loyalty to each other, and quiet intelligence helped them move up the ranks quickly. By the time they reached their early 20s, the brothers were no longer small-time players. They controlled a key part of a county lines network, responsible for moving drugs from Liverpool to smaller towns nearby. This wasn't just a business to them. It was a way to gain respect and power in a world that had offered them few chances. Their family bond kept them united, and they trusted no one outside their close circle. This tight control allowed them to keep their operation secret and efficient, making it difficult for outsiders, including the police, to penetrate. Their success also came with a dark side. The brothers were ruthless in protecting their territory and enforcing rules. Violence was a constant threat, and those who crossed them often paid a heavy price. They exploited vulnerable young people, recruiting them as runners and forcing them into dangerous situations. Despite this, many in their neighborhood viewed them with a mix of fear and grudging admiration. The brothers represented both the danger and the survival instinct that defined life in this part of Liverpool. What no one fully realized, however, was how far their influence would eventually reach. As the drug crisis deepened in Liverpool, the police knew they had to act decisively. Behind the scenes, a major law enforcement effort was underway, one that would come to be known as Project Medusa. This initiative was designed specifically to target county lines drug networks, which had become a nationwide problem. These operations were not just about drugs. They involved exploitation, violence, and complex criminal systems that stretched across regions. Project Medusa was the answer to breaking these networks apart. The police began by gathering intelligence from a variety of sources. Officers worked undercover in neighborhoods hit hardest by the drug trade, listening closely, watching, and slowly piecing together the puzzle. They tracked phone calls, monitored social media, and collaborated with communities affected by addiction and crime. Every small detail mattered. The brothers from Liverpool, while careful, could not escape the growing web of surveillance. Their network, once thought impenetrable, was gradually exposed through painstaking detective work. Project Medusa involved multiple agencies working together: local police, drug enforcement units, and even national crime squads. This cooperation was essential because county lines operations were so widespread and organized. The brothers' involvement became a focus after police intercepted communications and identified patterns in drug distribution routes. These clues linked the trio directly to shipments of crack cocaine and heroin moving through the city and beyond. The police understood that arresting the brothers would not only disrupt their operation, but send a powerful message to other drug dealers. However, proving the brothers' guilt was a challenge. County lines networks often operated through layers of runners and middlemen, shielding leaders from direct evidence. The brothers kept their hands clean publicly, while others carried out the risky work. The investigation required patience and precision, as a single misstep could alert the criminals and cause the entire operation to collapse. For months, officers collected evidence, mapped the network, and prepared for a strike. As Project Medusa gained momentum, the brothers remained unaware of just how close the police were to bringing them down. The tension was building, but the full scale of the crackdown was yet to be revealed. What started as quiet surveillance was about to explode into one of the largest police operations Liverpool had seen in years. The brothers ran their drug operation with a level of control that was both chilling and effective. Their county lines network stretched far beyond Liverpool, reaching into smaller towns where crack cocaine and heroin found new markets. They had built their empire on fear and discipline, carefully managing every step from supply to sale. The system relied on young runners, often teenagers, who were recruited from vulnerable communities. These runners were used to transport drugs and money between Liverpool and other towns, constantly on the move to avoid police detection. The brothers kept a tight grip on their runners, using threats and intimidation to ensure obedience. They were ruthless in enforcing rules, punishing any sign of disloyalty or failure harshly. The young couriers had little choice. They were trapped in a dangerous cycle, exploited for the brothers' gain while facing serious risks themselves. This method of control made the operation difficult for law enforcement to infiltrate. The runners were easily replaced, and their loyalty was bought with fear rather than respect. Packaging and transporting drugs was a carefully orchestrated process. The brothers used clever techniques to hide drugs from authorities, wrapping them in everyday items or disguising shipments as legitimate deliveries. Their network was constantly adapting to new police tactics, finding fresh routes and ways to stay ahead. This made it hard for officers to intercept shipments or gather concrete evidence. Neighbors noticed strange activity: young people coming and going at odd hours, whispers of violence, and increasing drug-related problems. But fear kept many silent. The brothers' reputation created a cloud of intimidation that spread through the community. People felt powerless, caught between wanting to speak out and fearing retaliation. Despite this, the brothers managed to maintain a facade of normalcy. They rarely attracted direct attention, blending into the city's landscape while their business flourished in the shadows. This duality was key to their success. They were both part of the community and rulers over it. using their influence to keep the police and neighbors at bay. Their careful balance of control and secrecy was a dangerous game, one that was slowly but surely unraveling as law enforcement closed in. For months, the brothers' operation seemed untouchable, moving drugs and money with precision and control. But even the most carefully planned networks can unravel from a single mistake. That mistake came unexpectedly when a low-level runner, pressured by police and overwhelmed by fear, slipped up during a delivery. The runner was stopped near one of the stash houses the brothers used to store their drugs and cash. In the search that followed, officers discovered a significant quantity of crack cocaine and heroin, along with detailed records, ledgers filled with names, amounts and routes. This discovery was a breakthrough. It gave the police their first solid evidence linking the brothers directly to the drugs flooding Liverpool's streets. The ledgers also hinted at the broader scale of the operation, revealing multiple trusted associates, frightened by the mounting pressure and potential consequences, began to question their loyalty. This internal uncertainty added to the brothers' growing troubles, pushing the criminal enterprise closer to collapse. What started as a small slip-up was turning into a major breakthrough for Project Medusa and a turning point in the fight against county lines in Liverpool. The crack in the brothers' seemingly impenetrable empire came from an unexpected source, a trusted insider who had worked closely with them for years. This individual, a mid-level member of the operation, had grown increasingly disillusioned with the lifestyle they were trapped in. The constant fear, the violence, the exploitation of vulnerable youths, it all became too much to bear. This person, who had once been fully loyal to the brothers, reached a breaking point. They realized that continuing to work for the brothers meant a life filled with threats, instability, and the very real risk of either imprisonment or worse. In a move that shocked law enforcement, the insider made contact with the police. They were terrified. Of course, breaking the unspoken code of loyalty within a criminal network like the brothers was dangerous. But the pressure had become too overwhelming. The insider provided crucial information: names, locations, detailed accounts of the drug distribution routes, and even maps of safe houses. This was the key piece of intelligence the police had been waiting for. The brothers' entire operation, once hidden in plain sight, was now laid bare. The authorities couldn't believe their luck. For months, the investigation had felt like chasing a mirage, close, but never quite within reach. Now, thanks to the insider's cooperation, the police could move decisively. They knew where the brothers operated, how they communicated, and where their most sensitive operations took place. This wasn't just about taking down one drug ring, it was about dismantling a complex, multi-layered network that spanned beyond Liverpool and into smaller towns. The brothers, unaware of the betrayal within their own ranks, continued to act with the same confidence. They made no changes, kept business as usual, assuming they had outsmarted the authorities. But in reality, the walls were closing in faster than they could realize. The insider's knowledge had given the police the edge they needed, and now the brothers were racing against a clock they didn't even know was ticking. The operation was on the brink of a sudden collapse, and the brothers' once secure position was crumbling, all because of a single, courageous decision from someone within their inner circle. Months of careful planning and gathering intelligence finally led to the moment law enforcement had been preparing for: a large-scale coordinated raid targeting the brothers' drug empire. The police knew that acting quickly and decisively was crucial. They assembled teams to strike multiple locations simultaneously: stash houses, safe houses, and known meeting points, all linked to the brothers' county lines operation. The goal was to overwhelm the network and prevent the criminals from escaping or destroying evidence. In the early hours of a cold morning, officers moved in with precision. Silent entry teams surrounded properties, breaking through doors and securing the premises before anyone inside could react. The brothers, caught off guard by the scale and timing of the raids, scrambled to protect themselves and their operation. But it was too late. Evidence piled up as police found hidden caches of crack cocaine, heroin, large sums of cash, and weapons. Phones seized during the raids revealed the depth of the communication network that coordinated the drug shipments. The arrest of the three brothers sent shockwaves through Liverpool. People who had once feared them now saw their downfall unfold in real time. The operation was hailed as one of the most significant crackdowns on county lines drug trafficking in the city's recent history. For the first time, police had struck at the very center of a powerful and violent network, disrupting the supply of drugs that had devastated communities. Behind the scenes, investigators worked quickly to process the evidence and prepare cases against the brothers and their associates. The police knew that securing convictions would require more than just arrests. It would mean untangling the complex layers of the network and proving the brothers' leadership roles in court. Yet the scale of the operation gave hope that this could finally be achieved. The raid was a turning point, not just for the investigation, but for the city itself. Families affected by addiction and violence saw a sign that change was possible. But it was clear that while the brothers had fallen, the fight against county lines would continue. The police victory was significant, but the larger battle for Liverpool's streets was far from over. The trial of the three Liverpool brothers quickly became one of the city's most closely watched court cases. For months, prosecutors worked tirelessly to build a strong case, relying on the extensive evidence collected during Project Medusa. Wiretaps revealed detailed conversations about drug shipments, while seized phones and ledgers documented the scale of their operation. Most crucially, testimony from the insider who had turned against the brothers provided a rare glimpse inside the secretive network. This witness described how the brothers controlled the flow of crack cocaine and heroin, managed runners, and used threats to maintain power. Throughout the trial, the courtroom was filled with a tense atmosphere. The brothers sat silently, their expressions guarded as the prosecution laid out the story of their rise and fall. The evidence was overwhelming, painting a clear picture of a ruthless criminal enterprise that exploited vulnerable people for profit. Prosecutors emphasized the devastating impact on communities, highlighting how addiction and fear spread alongside the drugs. The defense team tried to downplay the brothers' roles, arguing they were distant from the day-to-day operations and that others were responsible for much of the violence. They attempted to cast doubt on the credibility of the insider witness, suggesting motives of revenge or self-interest, but the weight of evidence was hard to ignore. Phone records, intercepted messages, and financial trails all pointed back to the three men. Beyond the legal battle, the trial revealed the human cost of county lines. Families affected by addiction and violence attended the proceedings, hoping for justice. Social workers and community leaders spoke about the need to address the root causes of the problem, such as poverty and lack of opportunities. The case became more than just a criminal trial. It was a reflection of Liverpool's ongoing struggle with drug crime and its consequences. When the verdict was finally delivered, the courtroom was silent. The brothers were found guilty on multiple charges related to drug trafficking and conspiracy. The judge handed down lengthy sentences, sending a clear message about the seriousness of county lines offenses. For Liverpool, it was a moment of relief, but also a reminder that the battle against drug networks would continue for years to come. The sentencing of the three brothers marked a decisive moment in Liverpool's fight against county lines drug trafficking. The court handed down lengthy prison terms, reflecting the severity of their crimes and the harm caused to communities across the city and beyond. The judge made it clear that the sentences were intended not only to punish, but to serve as a warning to others involved in similar criminal enterprises. The brothers' fall was swift and absolute. Once powerful figures now confined behind bars, stripped of their influence and control. News of the sentencing spread quickly, bringing a mix of emotions to the city. For many it was a moment of relief and hope. Families who had lived in fear of the brothers' violent enforcement of the drug trade felt a sense of justice served. Community leaders and police officers alike praised the outcome as a major victory. The success of Project Medusa showed that persistent and coordinated law enforcement could dismantle even the most entrenched criminal networks. Yet beneath this optimism, concerns lingered. County lines operations were deeply rooted in social and economic problems. Poverty, lack of opportunities, and neglect. The brothers' removal left a gap, but there was fear that others would step in to fill it. The cycle of exploitation and violence was not easily broken by imprisoning a few individuals. For many residents, the sentencing was only the beginning of a longer, more difficult journey toward recovery and safety. Community groups began mobilizing, aiming to support vulnerable young people who might otherwise be drawn into drug running. Outreach programs, education efforts, and police partnerships sought to prevent another generation from following the same path. The brothers' story became a cautionary tale, one that highlighted the dangers of county lines but also the importance of addressing the root causes behind the crime. Liverpool faced a challenging future. The brothers' sentencing was a significant milestone, but it was clear that the battle against county lines drug trafficking would continue. The city needed not just law enforcement, but investment in communities, opportunities for young people, and long-term strategies to break the cycle. The hope was that lessons learned from this case would guide those efforts, helping Liverpool build a safer, healthier future for all its residents. With the brothers behind bars, Liverpool experienced a cautious sense of relief. The drug supply they once controlled had been significantly disrupted, and for many neighborhoods, the immediate threat seemed to lessen. But the story didn't end with their arrest and sentencing. The city faced the complex task of healing and rebuilding after years of fear and violence caused by the county lines operation. Families affected by addiction and crime sought support, while community groups worked tirelessly to fill the gaps left behind. Project Medusa continued its efforts, using the momentum gained from the brothers' downfall to target other drug networks operating in and around Liverpool. The police recognized that dismantling one group did not solve the broader problem. County lines were part of a larger system of exploitation, often involving vulnerable young people coerced or forced into dangerous roles. To truly tackle the issue, law enforcement partnered more closely with social services, schools, and local charities. In neighborhoods hit hardest by the drug trade, outreach programs expanded, offering education and alternatives to young people who might be tempted or pressured into involvement. These initiatives aim to break the cycle by addressing underlying causes such as poverty, lack of opportunity, and social isolation. The hope was to give youths a chance for a better future, steering them away from crime before it took hold. The story of the three Liverpool brothers became a cautionary tale, a reminder of how quickly ambition and desperation can lead to destructive choices. It also highlighted the power of collaboration between police, community members, and support organizations to combat deep-rooted problems. The brothers' rise and fall exposed the harsh realities of the drug trade and its human cost, but it also sparked conversations about healing and prevention. Liverpool knew the battle was far from over. County lines networks were adaptable and persistent, ready to exploit any weakness. Yet the city had shown resilience and determination. With continued vigilance and investment, there was hope that the streets could become safer, and future generations could grow up free from the shadow of drug violence. The legacy of this case would shape Liverpool's approach to crime and